Michigan takes on Iowa State, 12 o'clock tip-off. Michigan's minus 3.5, total's 132 and a hook. We saw a 2-point move toward Michigan and movement downward on the total. The Wolverines open 1.5 up to minus 3.5, total open 134 down to 132 and a hook. 61% of the consensus are leaning toward Michigan, 57% shaded toward the under. Right now, the Cyclones of Iowa State are plus 160 on the money line. I like Michigan in this spot here. I'm also going to purchase the 0.5 point, slide it down, and take Michigan minus 3 and the over 132.5 in that matchup. Next game, Sparty taking on UCLA, 2:30 Eastern tip-off in that game. Michigan State is the heavy double-digit favorite in this one. They're minus 14 with the total at 147. We saw a 0.5 point fade of Michigan State and movement upward on the total. Sparty open 14.5 down to minus 14. Total open 146 up to 147. Now Sparty has failed to cover in 4 out of their last 6. Meanwhile, the Bruins of UCLA, they're 5-2 straight up on the year, 4-2 against the spread in their last 6 themselves. I'm going to lean toward the underdog in this matchup here. Give me UCLA plus 14 and the under 147 in that matchup. Next game, Dayton taking on Kansas. 5 o'clock Eastern tip-off in that game. The Jayhawks are minus 4.5, total 147 and a hook. We actually saw a 1.5 point fade of Kansas in the early wagering. We saw movement upward on the total as well, and Dayton proving that they can hang with the big boys. But once again, Kansas opened as the 6-point favorite. They're down to minus 4.5. Total open 147 up to 147 and a hook. And as good as Dayton's been, I can't take them here. I'm going to lean Kansas minus 4 after buying the 0.5 point and the over 147.5 in that game. Before we go ahead and move on, just want to take a quick timeout and welcome you to the show. Got some lines and personal leans out for Wednesday's college basketball action. But before we dive into some more of that, I just want to quickly remind you to check me out on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage, where we are hitting at 65% for the entire college football season on that website. A lot of folks will ask me what's the difference between what you do on Patreon and what you do here on YouTube, and I will address that question at the end of this show. What we do on Patreon is we have daily plays and selections. We have a bunch of different memberships, tiers, and packages that you can subscribe to, beginning at just $1.99 per month. And I'll tell you this much, my current record on Patreon is a lot better than it is on YouTube, and you can check out that current record for free right now. All you have to do is click the link in the description section below. It'll take you to the homepage, and my record's right there on the homepage. That's patreon.com/BrockPage. All right, let's go ahead and dive into some more college basketball action here for Wednesday. All starts Eastern Standard Time. And on deck, we've got Ole Miss taking on Penn State. $5 o'clock Eastern tip-off in that game. Penn State's minus 2.5, total 134. We saw a 1-point move toward the Nittany Lions and movement downward on the total. Penn State open 1.5 up to minus 2.5. Total open 136 down to 134. 64% are leading Penn State, 58% shaded toward the under. Right now, Ole Miss is plus $1.25 on the money line. Now, the Rebels are 4-1 straight up on the year, and they've successfully covered the number in 2 out of their last 3. Now, Penn State, on the other side, they failed to cover against Yale in their last game. They did win the game. It was a tight one, 2-point victory. Whoa, Orb. That was wild. Did you guys see that? That was so strange. Anyway, that was a real live orb, by the way. Kind of freaking me out. But anyway, was it a fuzz or an orb? I don't see anything that landed on the thing. Definitely an orb. Wild. Anyway, Penn State, they won that last game by 2. Should have lost the game. But they were the 15-point favorite, and they failed to cover in that one. They did not do a good job getting the job done. So anyway, I'm going to lean toward Ole Miss in this spot here. I'm also going to purchase the 0.5 point, slide it up, and take Ole Miss plus 3 and the under 134 in that matchup. Next game, it's not going to be Kansas State taking on Bradley. It is going to be South Carolina taking on UNI, and that is Northern Iowa, by the way, and that's going to be a 6 o'clock Eastern tip-off in that game. The Gamecocks are the 1-point favorite in this one. Totals at 129. We saw a 0.5 point fade of South Carolina and movement downward on the total. The Gamecocks open 1.5 down to -1. Total open 130 down to 129. UNI is plus 103 on the money line. They're also 6-1 straight up on the year, 5-1 against the spread in their last 6. Meanwhile, South Carolina on the other side, completely different story. They failed to cover in their last 3 straight. They failed to cover against Boston University, Gardner-Webb, and Wichita State. I'm going to lean toward the underdog in this one. Give me Northern Iowa plus 1 and the under 129 in that game. All right, next matchup. It is going to be Oklahoma State taking on Syracuse, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off in that game. The Orange are -3, total 125. Saw a 1-point move towards Syracuse and movement downward on the total. The Orange open -2 up to -3. Total open 127 down to 125. 65% are leaning Syracuse, 51% shaded toward the over. Right now, the Cowboys of Oklahoma State are plus 135 on the money line. The Cowboys have also failed to cover in 3 out of their last 5. Syracuse on the other side, 3-1 against the spread in their last 4. I'm going to lean Syracuse -3 and the under 125 in that matchup. Next game, it is going to be Pitt taking on Northwestern. Do I have that on the board? Yes, I do. Pitt taking on Northwestern. 8:30 Eastern tip-off in that game. The Pitt Panthers are the 2-point favorite, total at 119. We saw a 0.5 point move toward Pitt and movement downward on the total. The Panthers open 1.5 up to -2. Total open 119.5 down to 119 flat. Northwestern failed to cover in 3 out of their 5 games. Meanwhile, Pitt on the other side, 5-2 straight up on the year. 2-0 against the spread in their last couple of games as well. I'm going to lean Pitt -2 and the over 119 in that matchup. Next game, the Shockers of Wichita State taking on West Virginia. 8:30 Eastern tip-off in that game. The Mountaineers are -1, total 128. We saw a 0.5 point fade of West Virginia and movement downward on the total. The Mountaineers opened they didn't open $1. They opened -1.5. Down to -1, total open 130, down to 128. Wichita State, 6-0 straight up on the year. West Virginia failed to cover in 2 out of their last 3. They're also covering just 40% of their games overall for the year. Give me the Shockers, 2 in the honey pot, 1 in the blue knot. Give me Wichita State +1 and the over 128 in that game. Next matchup, it is going to be Seton Hall taking on Oregon, 9:30 Eastern tip-off in that matchup. The Ducks are -1.5, total 134. Saw a 0.5 point move toward Oregon and movement downward on the total. The Ducks open 1 up to -1.5. Total open 136 down to 134. 61% are leaning Oregon, 69% shaded toward the under. Right now, Seton Hall is plus $1.15 on the money line. The Ducks are undefeated on the year, 5-0 straight up on the year, 4-1 against the spread. I'm going to purchase the 0.5 point, slide it down, and take the Ducks -1 and the over 134 in that matchup. And I'm going to slide my next and final game for the show. It is going to be Virginia Tech taking on the Stormin' Mormons of BYU. And that's going to be an 11:30 Eastern tip-off in that game. Virginia Tech's -2, totals 136.5. Saw a 0.5 point move toward Virginia Tech and movement upward on the total. The Hokies open as the 1.5 point favorite up to -2. Total open 136 up to 136.5. And at the moment, Joseph Smith and company are plus 115 on the money line for BYU. I do like the Stormin' Mormons in this spot here. I think they're going to get the job done. Those that are not on their mission, that are actually playing basketball. So I'm going to lean BYU +2 and the under 136.5 in that game. All right, guys, we're going to slide into our quick pick recap. Once again, brought to you by patreon.com/BrockPage. where we are hitting at 65% for the entire college football season on that website. I like BYU +2 under 136.5, Oregon -1 over 134, Wichita State +1 over 128, Pitt -2 over 119. Whoa, that scared me. The music started playing. Oh my God, we got like Prince in the background. Thing won't pause. I can't turn it off. Oh my God. Well, we're just going to stick with it. We'll have the music in the background, I think. Will I get sued for that? I don't know. Anyway, I think I just have to demonetize. Anyway, wow, what an incredible podcast. We had an orb, a ghost floating. The TV just started playing random music. This is incredible. But anyway, where were we at? Wichita State +1 over 128. Pitt -2 over 119. Syracuse -3 under 125. UNI +1 under 129. Ole Miss +3 under 134. Kansas -4 over 147 and a hook. UCLA +14 under 147. And last but certainly not least, I like Michigan, the Wolverines -3 and the over 132 and a half in that game. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Once again, don't forget to check me out on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage, where once again, we are hitting at 65% for the entire college football season. Now, a lot of folks will ask me, what's the difference between what you do on Patreon and what you do here on YouTube? And that's an excellent question. That's a great question. Basically, your difference is this. What we do here on YouTube is we handicap every single game on the board, both the side and the total. And typically, we will do that with professional sports. We'll handicap every single game, NBA, football, all that good stuff. The difference is what we do when we handicap every single game on the board, both the side and the total, is we really bring down our probability. I mean, the math is against you. The books are too smart. They're too sharp. So what we do on Patreon is we really narrow it down and dial it in on 3 to 4 premium selections per day. They're games that I personally have action on. And I'll tell you this much, my current record on Patreon is a lot better than it is on YouTube. And you can check that out right now. All you have to do is click the link in the description section below. That is patreon.com/BrockPage. But most importantly, wow, the remote doesn't work. This TV is possessed by a ghost right now. You saw the orb. I can't change it. Anyway, I'm done. I'm out of here. Bye.